that meme about unlocking a boss character or weapon and it turns out to be way crappier than its boss counterpart? Yeah, that doesn't apply to this one. Greatsword of Radahn is a boss weapon obtained in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. More specifically, it's the weapon you obtain by using the remembrance of the final boss of the DLC, which is, Radahn, my brother.
Don't forget about his femboy, though.
But anyway, if you've been tinkering with these two rolling pins, depending on how you've been using them, you may have come to one of these two conclusions. They either suck gargantuan triceratops balls, or they're amazing. In reality, the Greatsword of Radahn is a fantastic weapon when used properly, which is where most people fail to meet the requirements to let the weapon shine. So if you want to literally have the power of God and anime on your side while making people panic roll for their lives, do hear me out. Greatsword of Radahn comes in two yummy flavors, the Lord Greatsword of Radahn and the Light Greatsword of Radahn. Both weapons are nearly identical in their properties. They share the exact same moveset. They both are power stanced when trying to two-hand them. They have the exact same scalings and boast identical damage and guard values. The only difference between them is how much FP their respective Ashes of War cost. And speaking of which, the main turbo-astronomical difference between both weapons is their Ashes of War. The Light Greatsword of Radahn's Ash of War is called Lightspeed Slash, and if you judge it by the name, you'd think that this thing hits harder than the news of you being a virgin for life. But forgive me for activating nerd mode. Do you know just how fast the speed of light really is? That thing can circle the Earth in 1 second 7 times. If something as tiny as a grain of sand were to hit you at the speed of light, you'd vaporize faster than you can say, "Hey, this..." Lightspeed Slash is more akin to getting slapped with wet tissue paper. You can charge it to deal a bit more damage, but that would make it even slower and more telegraphed, only to deal slightly higher damage. So in conclusion, the light version of the weapon is pretty unremarkable. The real fun begins when you start using the Lord Greatsword of Radahn with its unique Ash of War called Promised Consort.
It's kinda gay.
Promised Consort has an initial activation plus 2 follow-ups. Each swing of the swords leaves pillars of light along the way, which will also deal damage. You first deal 2 swings, followed by 2 other swings, finishing the Ash of War with a jump attack that will stun the enemy for the final blow, which also releases a burst of pillars of light in 8 different directions. The actual swing's damage will depend on your physical damage, while the pillars of light deal holy damage that scale with your intelligence. The interesting part of the Ash of War is that the first part will not combo into the second part, but it's perfectly designed to roll catch people. If you have a medium load, thus performing a mid-roll, it doesn't matter in which direction you roll, you will get roll-catched. And the second part always combos into the third part, which is pretty bad for you because this thing deals a ton of damage. Getting hit by a full combo will most likely result in death, unless you have a ton of vigor or high resistances, as getting away from hit if hit with the first part can be exceedingly difficult, unless you're wearing high poise. If you have at least 96 poise, the second swing of the first attack will connect, but it will not stun you, giving you a chance to safely roll away. Just don't try to mash against it. Because did I mention that this thing has a lot of hyper armor? This Ash of War was practically designed to trade, as hitting the enemy point blank with it leaves them in the best position for roll catches. And as long as you're wearing heavy armor and the Bull Goat Talisman, you'll be safely trading into most things, even Colossal Sword's heavy attacks. And one bad trade is all these bad boys need to tear your behind as big and red as the Nippon flag's rising sun. However, the most attentive poggies in the audience are probably aware of this Ash of War's main weakness: latency. To make a very long story short, if you have high latency against your opponent, that is, if your opponent lives pretty far from where you live, the Ash of War will most likely not roll catch them, because on high latency people can just roll through everything without taking damage. We have a very detailed video about it if you want to learn more about this, but what you need to know now is that if you're in the States and your enemy is in Saturn, the Ash of War will not be as effective. But fear not, because that is not the only tool you have. If the enemy doesn't have enough poise to tank the second swing of the Ash of War, you can deal another hit to them with a quick offhand weapon such as a hatchet for a 3-hit true combo. This is, of course, not as strong as a full combo from the Ash of War, but it's a good alternative against laggy opponents. And as a bonus, the crouch attack also sets you up for a fast attack from an offhand weapon. Overall, the weapon is very solid in high latency and incredibly good in low latency. But the weapon alone won't turn you into the isekai protagonist you so desperately wish to be. You need to know how to build the weapon, so I'll leave you with the Miquella's other half for that.
Miquella, that sounded a bit insensitive. Is she always like that?
To be honest, we're pretty used to it by now. At least the pay is good.
So, you want to go to your own isekai, eh? I'm sure you do. You weeb. Lucky for you, rope is not needed for that. All you need is to know that the sword has high requirements for strength and dexterity, and a little bit of intelligence. You may be tempted to increase your intelligence to further boost the damage of the Ash of War, but that's not needed. All you need to do is meet the base requirements for dexterity and intelligence, and pump up your strength to have the Ash of War one-shotting panic rollers left and right. This will leave you with a level 150 Vagabond with 60 Vigor, 33 Endurance, 70 Strength, 24 Dexterity, 15 Intelligence, and 12 Faith. The 12 Faith points are Bestial Vitality, which is very useful. The damage of the Ash of War can be boosted with the Shard of Alexander and the Rotten Wing Sword insignia. The reason you don't see us using the insignia in most clips is because the Ash of War already one-shots without it, and, well, I'm not gonna lie, we forgot about it. We're pretty stupid. But it is true that the Ash of War is pretty stamina consuming, so the two-headed dog talisman is also a good choice. For your physic, you can choose between survivability to tank hits with the Opaline Hard tier and the Crimson Bubble tier, or even more damage with the Thorny Crack tier, which is a bit of an overkill, if you ask me. The most efficient way to use the Ash of War is by setting the opponent for retaliation or escape in some way. This will guarantee to connect the first part of the Ash of War either by roll catch or trading, and the rest is pretty much history. Remember to use your other tricks in case of high latency, as it can be difficult to land the Ash of War in those situations. And with that, you have become Anime, Destroyer of Nostrils.